Do you really know what we're talking about today?
Yeah.
Okay. What are we talking about today?
G'day, everyone, and welcome to Real Raw Relatable. I'm your host, Stevie B, and today, special guest talking about all things authenticity and relationships. In the studio, we have Kat John. Yay! The live audience goes crazy. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you for having me. It's awesome to be here.
It's always a pleasure having you on the show.
Is it?
Yeah, I find that you bring like just a joyfulness to the show. You know, like obviously when I'm talking to everyone one-on-one, you know, it's dynamic. But when you're here, there's good banter.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I'm glad.
So today, what we're talking about before we start
Mm-hmm.
is what have you enjoyed about our relationship? And what have you not enjoyed about our relationship since the last time you joined me on my podcast?
I haven't enjoyed. I'm going to start there. There was a pocket and period of time where I felt us lose us. Like I could tell you were in your shit. I was in my shit. I don't know what it was due to, whether it was both the girls being here, tiredness, not sleeping well, whatever. But I didn't feel close to you.
Mm-hmm.
And I hadn't had that feeling for some time, like we've been in a really beautiful, sweet spot. So I felt that, and that, yeah, I didn't really enjoy that part of that period of time. What I have enjoyed is that we're back in our flow, and I feel like we're back in our hearts, and we've been listening to music and singing and cuddling and just, yeah, like driving to a furniture store with you is like the cutest thing ever because I just get to be with you. So that's me.
Yes.
What about you?
I also did enjoy some aspects.
Did or didn't?
Didn't.
Yep.
And that's actually what today's show is going to be about, but I'll get to that.
Okay.
And
Steve's got the topic. I don't know the topic.
Yeah. And this is cool. This is why these podcasts are actually authentic, because most of the time when I have Kat John on as a special guest, I don't brief her on what we're going to talk about, and that way, what actually comes out that you guys get to hear is truly authentic. It's not like we've fucking crafted it, and it's like here's the speech and whatever. It's like, all right.
So is what I suggested downstairs what we could talk about? Is that what we're talking about?
Sort of. It needs a prelude, but then we're going to get to that.
Okay.
So yes.
What didn't you enjoy? Sorry.
That disconnection. I'm going to call it just the ugh.
Yeah.
But I'll go into that more rather than talking about it now and then repeating it. What I did enjoy was last night you made lasagna. And
can I say it was the first time I made lasagna?
First time you've ever made it, and it was epically good.
It was epically good. I didn't even get to try it because I don't eat meat.
We had the whole family around. The girls were there. Allegra's boyfriend was there. We were singing. We were dancing. My mate Tommy was over. And then after that, you made chocolate chip cookies. And it was just, It was like this picture perfect moment that no one tried to create.
No.
And it was just such a good night. Like, you know those moments when you know a memory is being created.
Yep.
But you're not trying to do it. You just know this is going to stick with me. Like in the future, I'm going to remember that night.
Totally.
You know, when the kids were 18 and it was just like natural connection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just on that, because when I was making the lasagna, you were like, oh my gosh, Kat, I can't believe you're going to make chocolate chip cookies as well. And everyone was like, oh my gosh, you're going to make chocolate chip cookies. And I'm like, wow, I've literally been in the kitchen since 5 p.m. I haven't even had my dinner, and everyone hasn't even had their dinner yet and they're asking for chocolate chip cookies. But there was this really two cute moments where you're like, everyone give Kat a round of applause, and everyone clapping
for you making chocolate chip cookies that you have not agreed to make. But it was just
that moment of like, that was a core memory locked in.
Mm.
There was just something, you're right, it was something so lovely and special about last night.
So what we're going to talk about today, which I'm sure affects everyone who is listening, because they're human and we're human.
Mm-hmm.
So during the week we had like a couple of days where we were both quite flat.
Yeah.
Right. Had stuff going on, and I think what's interesting about the human condition is how much we put contentment / happiness in the hands of external events.
Mm-hmm.
You know, something good happens, you're happy. Something bad, well, a perceived bad thing happens, you're unhappy. And then what happens is, and we've talked about this before, you know, this hedonic adaptation concept. And if you don't know what it is, it's basically that you have this baseline of contentment and happiness, and something really good happens and you'll go back to baseline, and something bad happens and you'll come back to baseline.
I think you've shared about it before.
I have.
Yeah.
I'm just repeating in case someone's new, because the podcast, it gets lots of new, listeners, and I don't like to leave any of my listeners hanging, so I'm just bringing the new ones up to speed.
And if you are new, please just know this is not Steve's podcast, because the way even on our book tour, you were like, welcome, this is Kat John. She's a guest on my Real Raw Relatable podcast. And there were people that didn't know who I was, and they were like, oh, Steve, so you've got a podcast. So,
I know. It's so good.
Yeah,
and then
we
I
can't
just
assume
watch
that everyone knows.
But I watch your face and you're so triggered. It's like, hey, motherfucker, that's my podcast. Not anymore. But anyway, I was saying, so there's this hedonic adaptation that's going on in your life. And then, you know, no event has any meaning until we give it meaning, right? That's just a fact. We decide what is good and what is bad. Yeah. And so what happened is we were both having this flat day, and I came up into Kat's space and I said, why is it that we spend so much time being down about things that we think aren't going well in our lives when we actually have everything? And then you said to me, you know what, I've been thinking about the same thing, and what you got that day in your journal was to focus on what you already have.
Yeah.
And so that,
yeah,
which then feeds into last night, is the topic of
it's so
of
true.
today's chat. Because
Yeah.
what it really is about are the things that we're really focused on in our own lives and / in your relationship with your partner. Are you really going for the right things? Are you really focusing on the right things? And what are the things that really, truly, deeply make you long-term happy? The things that you're going to think about when you're taking your last breaths on this earth.
Yep.
You know, are you going to be thinking about the car, about the job, about whatever the fuck you're worrying about right now? Or are you going to think about making chocolate chip cookies and watching your family eat lasagna and dance and smile around a table?
Yeah.
That is where I think the message of last night can be really powerful.
I agree because you're right. This week you were in your, and I know that this is when Steve comes on, we talk about our relationship. And so in our relationship, both of us were being taken for a little ride by our traditional thought patterns of doom, gloom, focus on shit that doesn't matter, giving fucks to things that don't actually matter. I mean, it seems like they matter if you've watched Inside Out 2, and anxiety is the one that's inside of the control panel. Like, anxiety will make it matter, and it'll really believe that it matters, right? And that's where you were going in your area of let's call it tight micro focus. And where I was going, this is where my Enneagram type 4, when I feel like I'm being basic, when I'm not doing anything special, when I feel like that, I'm just an everyday human existing, that's where my stuff really starts to come up. And I know that, see, there's a difference between wanting to be purposeful and live a purposeful life. And then there's this slight, when I shift over to I'm a nobody. I need to be somebody. And so in order for me to be somebody, I always need to be doing something. And because I was sort of just not doing anything, quote unquote special, I started to get lost in my lostness. So I'm lost. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what my purpose is. I don't know what my goals are. And I started heading down that track. And then I just said to myself, hang on, which is what you already said. What do I want to focus on? What do I really want to focus on? And this quiet, beautiful, darling little voice inside just said, on what you already have.
Mm.
And I thought, fuck.
Yeah, and this is the thing. Like, anyone listening will resonate with this. We all do it. How many of us out there have all these things in our lives that we have now just 100% taken for granted, and all our little egoic brain does is focus on what we don't have. I was watching The Matrix 4, I think it's called Resurrections. Not a great movie, but there was this line that this guy delivers to Neo, who's like the main character, and he says, because the concept of the Matrix is that human beings are batteries, and that robots put this fake world in front of us to keep us like just in our little pods so they can generate electricity from our bodies. And this guy that runs the Matrix basically says to Neo, you know how we keep you controlled? Your entire species spends their whole lives constantly longing for what they don't have, whilst at the same time desperately clinging onto what they do. And that is it. They just keep us there through this mixture of fear of losing what you have, which is pain, and then always wanting what you don't have, which is desiring pleasure, right? So it takes a tremendous amount of consciousness and focus to be able to bring yourself back and go, but hang on a minute, what about right in this exact moment?
Yeah.
Like, what do I
know.
actually have?
I know. And so this is when you came into my room. I was doing some work and Steve came into my room and he was very flat and he just laid on my little day bed back here. And we were talking about it. And that's when you asked that question, why do you think it is that we focus on this? And that's when I said to you, and I went into this reminder mode. And I've talked here, we've talked here about the wheel of life before. I talk about it in my coaching program. And I said to Steve, I said, we have a very fat wheel of life, as in is it the tread on your tire?
So the wheel of life is like a diagram of a wheel, and each segment represents part of your life. So it'll be like health, relationships, finances, purpose, whatever, and you score it out of 10.
Yeah.
So if you imagine, all these segments, if you've got 10, 10, 10, 10, 10 all the way around, well, then your life is going to be smoothly rolling.
Yeah, but what I was asking is it when you say the tread on your tire or thread on your tire? Tread. Okay, that's all I was actually wanting to ask, not the actual fucking description of the wheel of life, but don't worry, all good, brother. Anyway, so I was reminding Steve that we have a very fat wheel of life, meaning we have a lot of tread. Our tires aren't bald. And I said to him, we live in a beautiful, beautiful part of Melbourne. We have a gorgeous, light-filled home. We have healthy children. We have an incredible relationship. We have food full in our fridge. We have bank accounts that have money in them. You have work. I have purpose. And we have friends that love us. We have family that love us. And when he was just lying there, I could see as I was reminding him in those moments, and this is the beauty of conscious relationships, right? When one is down, see, in that moment, I wasn't like, all right, Steve, come on, let's just be positive here. I heard him out. He was the one that asked the question, and I was able to offer a really, I would say, soft, beautiful reminder. And I could see you, the way that you were looking back at me, you're like, fucking, yeah, you're right. You're right. I'm focusing only on loss. You were focusing only on the loss of what was happening and hadn't hadn't even happened yet, or there was one loss that happened, and there's a future loss, and yet really reality hadn't changed. Our home
No.
was still our home. The food was still in the fridge. The love of our family was still present. Our friends were present. The love between you and me was still present. We still had clothes on our back. And it's like, fucking how much more do we want?
And I think also on that, so the losses that Kat's talking about is I have multiple businesses, and one of my businesses, we had a client that unfortunately we're going to lose in the future, right? Because of a change in their circumstances, and so that means my ego's like, cool, all right, we're going to have to replace that client. This is going to suck. Blah 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 blah.
Yeah, and that's what you said at the beginning. You made it mean. So the reality was you lost a client. Yes, that does suck, because it means less income. However, the layered meaning that you put on top of it was what made you feel the most shit.
Yeah. But then what happened is last night, this is why last night was such a meaningful thing, is nothing's changed in my reality.
Yeah.
I'm still, one of my companies is still going to lose that client, right? We're still going to lose that income. We're still going to have to go about and replace it. But even though reality hadn't changed, last night was just beautiful because it doesn't make a difference in that moment.
Yeah.
In that moment, with focus guided onto that yummy meal and sitting around and like my daughter's 18, her boyfriend's 19, my other daughter's 16. Like, a lot of parents, if you're listening, by this age, like your kids are like, go and fuck yourself. Like, I don't even want to be in the same space with you.
Yeah.
And they're sitting there and just with this naturalness, you just had music playing. People, one by one, people started singing.
I know.
Until it was like this fucking concert with people singing at the top of their lungs at the table.
Oh, we ended it with, what's that wicked song, Defying Gravity?
Defying Gravity. And like my daughter's like, and
I'm dancing around the kitchen.
Yeah. And I guess my point is like, it's not a deep podcast today. It's just for anyone listening who's feeling down, just the solution to how you feel without changing reality is just spend a moment and start thinking about everything that you have. Yeah.
It's sort of a layered approach to our last episode, which was about gratitude.
Yeah.
Right. And I think you and I, we're in a deepened practice of it because we have created a privileged life for ourselves where we really do have everything we need.
Yeah.
Like if we are full blown heart honest, we have everything we need.
Yep.
And that's an awesome place to to be in, and two, to nurture with gratitude, with remembrance, with, all right, cool, something annoying did happen, something frustrating did happen, then let me come back to my enriched life.
And why this is a cure-all for anyone, regardless of what status your life is at. I remember I got intrigued about happiness a long time ago, and I did like a deep dive research into happiness. And basically what it said is that, up to a certain amount of money, there's a significant increase in happiness that occurs. But once you pass that threshold, which is pretty much like the Australian average income, happiness, just doesn't increase. So there are millionaires and billionaires out there who like are miserable. Right? Because their metric of happiness is let's say, for example, you're the second richest person on the planet. You could still be a miserable fuck because you spend your life focused on, but I'm not the richest.
Yeah.
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 Like I remember when I read that book with Mark Manson, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, and he talked about this story of this guy that got kicked out of a band. Yeah. And the guy that got kicked out of a band, he was a guitarist, and he went on to create Megadeth. I think
That's
they were called
right.
Megadeth.
Yeah.
And they were like, they were massive. Like they went multiple platinum, were hugely successful. And this guy was depressed his whole life because the band that kicked him out was Metallica, who
Mm.
went on to become the
Yeah,
biggest
the biggest.
metal band in the world. So
Yeah,
this poor guy achieved so much success
yeah.
and still couldn't actually enjoy it
Enjoy it.
because of the fact that his
Mm.
focus was on, but I'm not Metallica,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So I
Yeah,
guess,
yeah.
the point is that anyone, no matter what stage of life you're in, there's going to be shit that you desire that
Mm,
isn't there, or you're going to have stuff that's happened that you perceive as a loss.
mm,
And I guess what I'm trying to say is that whilst you can't change reality,
mm.
what you can 100% change is your focus.
Well, you can
You can change,
change reality.
correct, but in the
You can.
moment,
Yeah,
even without changing
yeah.
reality, I
You
guess
can
my
change your
point is,
experience of
correct,
reality.
you can change your experience.
The one thing I also want to add is, so there are going to be people listening out there that are going to be like, yeah, well, cool for you, you fucking privileged fucks. You know, well done. I'm glad you get to have a fat wheel of life, right? And I hear you, even though I can't hear you, but I get it. I want to share, which is what I wrote in my book, about my background being half Filipino and going back to the Philippines from when I was a young girl and having extreme contrast from the privileged life that I was brought up in. You know, going to private schools, and we lived in a great home. Dad worked his ass off and all those kinds of things for us. And yet I was unhappy. I was out partying. I was taking drugs. I was going off the rails. And yes, I had a past that I was dealing with, or running from, I should say. And yet every time I would go to the Philippines, where my family lived in the provinces, it wasn't, you know, Palawan or Boracay. It was provinces. It was, you know, everyone sleeping in a room and all those kinds of things. Shit, they were happy.
Mm,
You know, but because their metric of success, so to speak, was completely different.
yeah.
It was community.
That's the thing. Like if, you know, I encourage anyone, go and look up happiness. They
It was
got a,
actually that
yeah.
documentary that you and I
There's a
watched at
movie
Christmas time.
called Happiness,
Yeah.
right? Or the
Happiness
Happy movie.
Project.
Yeah, the Happy movie.
Yeah.
And they went around and they found that it was some of the poorest places in the
Yep.
world are the happiest because
Yep.
their focus
Yep.
is on things that exist within them already, right?
It's a beautiful way to say that.
So
They talk about they have spiritual richness.
correct. And
Yeah.
and the reality is that contentment and happiness in any relationship is already in it.
Yeah.
It's never going to be
Yeah.
an external thing.
Yeah.
Like, I'll be happy when, fuck, man, I've lived that experience
Yeah.
for so much of my life
Yeah.
and it sucks balls. So, you know, yes, I get it. Everyone's circumstances are different. You're
Yeah.
100% right. And
Yep.
people will be listening going, well, fuck you, mate. Like, it's easy for you. It's like, well, we've all lived our lives.
Yeah,
right?
correct. Yeah.
And all we're trying to do is to share that, you know, we had a down week and this was such a simple solution to bring us back. So if you're having some issues in your relationship, and just ask yourself, you know,
What am I focusing on?
great, what are you focused on? How grateful are you? You know, are you grateful for the fact that you can walk into your bathroom, flick a lever, and hot water pours onto you? You know, are you grateful that you can bank from your phone, that you can check anything that like? Just, I mean,
Yeah.
you just have to take.
You can get pretty minute when you really focus in on
Fuck
it.
yeah. Like, you think about back in the 80s, if you needed to go and pay a bill, like, all right, be back in fucking 4 hours. I'm just driving down to the post office, standing in a queue, putting my bill there. Like, we literally are, we take shit for granted.
Yeah, we do.
So it's about being grateful.
And I want to also just add, so to sum it up, so the both of us were in our shit. And as a result, we were in a shit relationship with our own, you know, projection of reality, really. We had things that were going on or self-created in my instance, and then we made meaning around it. And so because of that, we were having a shit relationship with life and we were having a shit time with one another. We were off. We weren't connected. I could tell Steve's heart wasn't there. I could tell that I was looking for things that were wrong. And that, you know, what like, where can I find where I'm not satisfied or whatever it might have been. And as a result, it was taking us further apart until you came upstairs and you just laid there, sat there, and we had a chat, and you asked that really lovely question, which then led me to share with you, because I've been doing a practice every morning where I write in my journal. I write morning pages at the top, and I typically write straight after "Blessed be my life." It's just these really simple words where I'm like, "Blessed be my life." Fuck yes, my life is very blessed. Let me remind myself of the ways my life is blessed. And so I shared that with you. You got inspired by that. And then I had my moment too, where it was like, what am I going to focus on? It's like just what is right in front of you. And as a result, we turned what could have been continued to be crap between us and within ourselves into a far better, dynamic. And then last night happened, and it's like this, oh my God, I've just, I had it all wrong, didn't I? Because last night are the things that will last in our hearts. I'll never forget last night.
No.
And
it always starts, if you look at any situation in our relationship that we come back from, if we're ever down or if things have gone off the track, it always starts with communication.
Yeah, it's true.
We openly communicate. We have the hard conversations, or we don't leave shit under the rug.
Yeah.
And then the magic happens. Thank you again for coming on. For those of you who don't know Kat is an authenticity coach and a speaker. She has written a book called Authenticity, which is
It's actually not called Authenticity.
It's called Authentic. It's about authenticity. Can you pass me the book in case people are watching on YouTube? This is the book. Get it into your eyes and your earballs on Amazon and Kindle and wherever else
everywhere
you buy books. It's an amazing book. Well done.
Thank you.
And it is out now. So if you like these podcasts, then get your hands on one and enjoy. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you for having me always.
I will see you in a month.
Okay.
And for the rest of my listeners, I will see you on the next episode. No, I'm only kidding.
This
is Kat John's podcast.
Oh my God.
She'll be back next episode.
Stop talking. Love you.